Welcome back, everyone, once again to LJL Week 7 of our summer split. Hot off the heels of a Detonation Focus Me possibly looking to their old form. They had quite a convincing show over Rascal Jester here in our last game. We're going to take a quick look at the Best Play Awards. Leave you guys with these for just a moment before we get into talking about that. As Ace, the one on Zoe, to find one of the plays of the game. And this is one of those plays I loved to see from Ace, especially love watching him on a champion that he can really shine on other than just a more supportive pick. Beautiful E-snipe to start things off as Aramic does not quite tank the bullet on that one. But then the second paddle star to find an invisible Wukong. R's forward. The burn gives him enough information to line up the snipe, and he finds himself with a neat double kill to help out on that one. Is overall a beautiful play from Ace, and of course the secondary goes to Gadaidu of Axis, and this was one of those moments. These are those clench moments, those nail biters, as Gadaidu helps out huge in leaving the Nexus at just 1 HP. CGA with a huge team effort on that one, but then Gadaidu comes in. He's here to help finish things along. And I just love how much ground Gadaidu is able to cover here. Teleport into Ghost, into Ultimate. Gadaidu just running around the map and trying to do as much as he can. He is able to put an end to that one, which otherwise would have been a very, very harrowing game for CGA. But it was actually one of Axis' biggest wins as a team overall. But speaking of wins, I do want to look back a bit on the last match that we just watched before we start talking about their next matches. DFM did look particularly solid in that last match. There wasn't a whole lot to address in the terms of the mid to late game portion, as by that point the game was pretty much set. But I will say is that DFM had great attacks on the side lanes, they identified weak lanes, and they were really able to capitalize off of them. So I'm hoping that that targeted aggression that the whole team is on top of is something that they'll be able to look for in this series, especially as it's going to be a little bit harder to find as you're going up against a team like CGA. And there is also the notion that DFM will not have the advantage of red side in this one. So with Crest Gaming Act having the red side advantage, I definitely think it's another opportunity for DFM to hopefully prove that their drafting was researched and hopefully patched up a bit in this past couple weeks. Or if we're possibly going to see repeat performances. DFM's last game versus CGA did not exactly go the best for them in terms of their draft, and I think definitely a lot of teams kind of struggle with the blue side on draft. I think there's almost a risk of giving away too much with what you don't ban, and not a lot of teams take that trade advantage very well, and that's sort of a regional thing that always kind of pops up. I know LCK has a lot of differing issues with red versus blue side drafts. But there are some very powerful combinations that both teams are going to be looking for in terms of the draft. So we'll see. We'll wait for that when we get there, as we're going to throw it over to the Japanese casters. And while we are here for CGA versus DFM, I definitely think that in terms of overall quality, I mean, before pre-draft predictions, I am going to heavily pass this over to CGA. I don't. When you're running up against a team that is 2-7 and has kind of been struggling most of the season, I really can't try to pass with any conviction in my heart that was a set sign that DFM are back to form. But this is quite the game for DFM to try and prove themselves in, as this is likely a team you are going to be having, or actually no, it almost is guaranteed to be a team that you are going to play in a best of 5 later on in the split if you make it that far running through playoffs. We're looking at the CGA lineup once again. But all of that being said, I think if DFM are able to find a win here, it will not only restore a lot of the fans' faith in DFM, it will really hopefully restore a bit of confidence even in themselves. I talked before about how Detonation Focus Me need to remember that their Detonation Focus Me. This is, for the past 3 years, the creme de la creme of the LJL, the International Warriors that the Japanese LJL region has sent out time and time again. So I'm hoping that they're going to be able to hopefully bounce back to a bit of form, but in their absence, a lot of teams have really stepped up to claim their spot, and CGA is definitely one of them. The only team to take a win off of V3 Esports so far this split. They're 1-1 with them, but their win was more recent. I believe it was week 6 that they ended up facing off against them. It was during the Super Weekend. But that being said, I definitely feel that CGA has elevated their game so much from the summer split. And the summer split was already a time where they looked fairly solid. They weren't playing bad. They did make it to playoffs. This time around, I definitely think we're looking at a much different CGA. This is a CGA that has great draft knowledge in most scenarios. This is a team that has proven themselves that they have a good head on their shoulders about how to play Aphelios and how to play other AD carries. It feels like every time something new in the meta pops up, CGA, right there, they're ready to seize it and they're ready to make use of it. And we'll hopefully be seeing that kind of a thing pop up in the draft here as we get things started along. CGA versus Detonation Focus Me, things starting off with a Karma ban. Zoe going to be banned away on the side of DFM. You definitely have to keep some of those higher priority mid laners out of the hands of a player like Arya specifically, as he's definitely one of the all-star members of CGA amongst a just overall very solid comp. Silas as well. A bit of attention over to Arya. He's definitely, we've talked ad nauseum, and we've seen him on the stage demonstrating. He was really one of the members that I think gave so much in the way of bringing Silas to the pro play stage, outside of just being this in isolation counter to Kennen. As that's going to be a similar story as a draft from last game. Set versus the Bear going to be locked in first to start things off here. As DFM going to lock in the Bard as well, and that's going to be a good pickup for the red side. Volibear, of course, not an ideal pick, and I was joking about this with one of my one of my analysts off stream. Is I have been very vocal about how I am not a huge fan of the Volibear, and CGA are just looking to neutralize that one right away, locking in the Aphelios here. Gonna be a hard time for the Bear. The nice thing is that DFM does have opportunity to be drafting up Ash Bard if they want to pick up that duo that had quite a number of wins over the course of the Super Weekend. As Ezreal is going to be locked in, a decent pickup alongside the Bard serves somewhat of a similar purpose. Doesn't have the same slow potential, but when you go into that Glacial Fist build, it does offer you that little bit of zoning tool, and ultimately, once you see an Aphelios, you're going to need some kind of poke options coming out, as exploiting Aphelios' weaknesses in range is definitely going to be an objective coming up for Detonation Focus Me, as Echo is going to be banned away. Soon to follow is going to be a Kennen ban, removing that kind of team fight option from the side of DFM. And for CGA, I wouldn't mind if we saw something of a couple bans, maybe on things like Trundle, in case this Volibear gets flexed up towards the top side. But that isn't to say that CGA, or that isn't to say that most of the LJL actually looks at Trundle as the Aphelios counter that a lot of other regions do, as Trundle has really fallen out of good graces in the meta. But Ziggs, an outstanding poke champion to ban away. The unfortunate part is that Seros' deep champion pool makes it very difficult, and DFM are gonna do it! Oh, yes! Oh, please tell me this is signs that DFM are learning their draft formats. And that is a good sign, hopefully, for DFM in this series, as they're going to draft themselves up a Trundle, reserve that mid lane counter pick. Now, if you are CGA here, drafting up an Ornn for a long-range engage is a great option because you're going to be dealing with a bit of a range disadvantage. But what does the mid lane come in as? And I wouldn't be surprised if they look for something that counters possibly a Xerath in isolation, or other poke champions that Seros might be able to bring out here. We've seen him play Xerath before. It's not an unusual pickup for him. And an Azir pickup, it's not a bad one, will survive the lane okay, but also, I definitely think that it just postures yourself for such a good team fight. You have you have three, realistically, very beefy frontline members that can lock players up. You have the combo sort of set, right? You have Ornn engage from a distance, followed up with a Solar Flare, and give Set enough space that he's able to start plays up. Although the Heimerdinger is going to be what's locked in here for Seros. And I'm a little bit worried about the Heimerdinger specifically. Its damage profile doesn't exactly work very well with Ezreal. You can be very defensive, but I would need to double check, and we'll hopefully see it in this game, but I believe the Call of the Forge God will one-shot turrets if both hits line up on it. As well as CGA are going to have a plethora of damage to try and get out across the members of DFM. The sort of nice thing is that DFM, while a lot of your damage is magic oriented, you can go for the Glacial Fist to add a little bit of potency there. There's a bit of build optimizations that you can go into here. I definitely think this is one of those games that CGA are going to be putting DFM on a clock, and the longer this game goes on, the harder it's going to be for them. But we'll see how things go for them. I'm a little bit saddened because when you look at, I was like, oh, you drafted the Bear. Oh, you drafted the Trundle into Aphelios. Okay, good job. Yeah, that's how that's supposed to work. You drafted a counter. DFM are learning, and then the Heimerdinger. That isn't to say that the Heimerdinger can't work here if you're trying to just set up zones of control and hopefully keep Aphelios away from doing the damage that he needs to. I definitely think it's possible, but passing over the Ornn is really what makes it hard to try and deny the members of CGA from sending out an engage, as well as following it up with like a long-range Solar Flare like that. we'll see how things go here, and hopefully Yutapon and Gang will be able to use their aggression in the early ends of the game to try and bully out Aphelios before he's able to get to online. Now CGA, this is going to be one of those games that slow and steady will win the race for them. Meanwhile, DFM, this would be a good win, as right now they are currently in wins tied with Burning Core. So an opportunity to steal away 4th place potentially on the menu. We'll see if CGA or we'll see if DFM are up to snuff to get that job done. Meanwhile, we'll see if CGA, they have their own little steal opportunity available if they end up stealing the 2 wins here, and V3 go 0-2 in this week. They will be tied, and they'll have an opportunity to play out a tiebreaker match with them to see who gets first seed. That being said, CGA, they also have to worry a little bit about Sengoku nipping at their heels. So a couple of different things to be present on the minds of CGA, but right now you gotta focus on what's in front of you. And what's in front of you is potentially the shadow of a great warrior, of a Colossus, if you will, that Detonation Focus Me once was. And we'll see if they're coming back in force, or if CGA is going to be able to hold a candle to those shadows and be able to snuff out the Detonation Focus Me's chances. They're still guaranteed for playoffs, so this won't be the last you hear of DFM if they have anything to say about it. But will they be starting out with a strong, commanding 2-0 week before we get into playoffs? Or will we see them only eking out 1 win against Rascal Jester, who their playoff chances are already currently dashed? And now, all of that being said, I think the last things that we have to look at and talk about in these kinds of matches is a little bit of the lane matchup, specifically in terms of players, but we'll get into that with the game as we start this up.
LJL 2020サマースプリットウィーク7ゲーム2クレストゲーミングアクト vs デトネーションフォーカスミーの試合スタートです。
And getting right into the match here, I will say one thing that I do kind of notice right away is we do see Steel going for the PTA instead of opting into the phase rush or things that give him a little bit more move speed. I don't think the PTA is bad by any means, especially if he has any intentions of scrapping with Unica in the jungle. That being said, on the subject of scrapping, with Genko taking Conquer, I don't imagine that they'll be dedicating too much to fighting in this bottom lane, as Yutapon is taking lethal tempo, so that will add a bit of extra potency to his fight down there. And I don't think that's a position that Genko and Grendel really want to get involved in. So I would expect Grendel to be roaming early or possibly not early, but often enough to hopefully find leverages around the map elsewhere. But DFM gonna get a good position on this early one, and that's gonna be the little poke war started up already. DFM love taking it to them on at that level 1 if they're able to get the early or the better early of that lane. Genko should have Severum MO to heal himself up, so he's not exactly too worried, but trading a little bit of damage back is also going to help out there. Evi's thinking about going for a stun opportunity. We'll get the stun. The E will land. It's going to be a good trade over on a nap here. As without that level 2, Nap doesn't have a whole lot of damage to really trade back. The Q slow only delays him for so long. And this is typical DFM fashion to get a little bit of the better early ends out of these lanes. They're very strong on those level 1 through 3s. And getting a bit of defensive vision will help out as far as keeping Unica from ruining his fun time in the top lane, hopefully trying to bully Nap before he's able to buy too many armor items. So that's a good amount of damage coming out from Seros there. Full combo landed. Getting all those empowered turret autos really stacks up the damage, and Arya does have teleport, so he can take an early back if he needs to. So that's going to be an opportunity. Grendel's going to go in. He has Aftershock to keep him safe, but it's not exactly something you can capitalize off of. So I don't think this will be a play that CGA will be able to worry about too much, but Seros is finding a huge chunk there as Arya got stunned before he was able to finish off the turret. Will be forcing out his health pot there, and with low mana, low HP, he might be forced to use an early teleport here. And you did see a little bit on the pathing side of things. Steel did path over and did steal his chickens, although it was a level 1 set of chickens. And now he's at risk where he needs to fight over this crab if CGA decide to engage for it. Crab's going to go down. That's going to be a stun onto Unica. He's going to need to back out of this one. But it did not look like Pillar was readily available from Steel, so is going to be backed out of there. While meanwhile on the top side of things, Nap's going to be forced to E away. Going to trade a bit of that damage over. That Brittle Brock does so much as Evi tanks a little bit of extra damage from the turret plate, or from the minions as well. And for now, this is going to be a little bit of an actionless game from the side of CGA. I imagine a lot of these first 2 Drakes, you're really willing to just hand them over to DFM, because an early 2 Drakes, especially now that you know that Ocean Drake is not going to be on the menu, is a small price to pay for being able to get a couple items, turn Azir and Aphelios into these shredders that they oftenly pose themselves as. And with DFM having most of the vision control around that Drake, they got a couple wards set up for it. It's a little bit risky for CGA to try anything on it. Not a bad call to put wards on it in just to keep tabs on where Steel is going, but not exactly like CGA, like we mentioned, has that kind of contesting power. And for now, the PvE wars will continue for both junglers, as this is a bit of an interesting note that we've kind of seen as a bit of a shift in the overall meta of junglers. It's really slowed down, especially compared to the spring split, where in spring it was the Jarvan, Rek'Sai, and Elise show, where if you were not an early game jungler, you were not prioritized in the jungle. And while that was a little bit more appropriate for the time, I do kind of enjoy that we are seeing a decent amount of LJL junglers kind of switching over to a little bit more farm-oriented. Vision awareness on junglers really does matter, and although it's not always respected by some laners, it really does pay dividends to have. And hopefully for the members of CGA, that will pay dividends, and just hopefully making Steel just focus entirely on farming for now, as Unica's going to help his mid laner farming out that in the mid lane, try to get a shove off, while DFM, they're going to be able to just grab up this Ocean Drake for free. As they secure that one up. The nice thing for CGA, or at least for Arya in the mid lane, who has been struggling a little bit into Seros, is that you're not going to go down too far in CS, although you are losing a bit out on XP, but it's going to be Grendel going for an all-in here. They're going to be willing to chase this one down. Unica's rotating around. And in the wake of that, CGA get a bit of a trade going on to the bottom side of thing. They can't really capitalize much more off of it, as Steel is on this side of the map, and Cero's going to be grabbing up the blue buff as well. Means he has a decent amount of sustain, so his teleport going to be on deck and ready, but hopefully gives CGA enough pressure to get a trade off on the bottom side of things, while meanwhile, looks Evi having thoughts about taking scraps with an Ornn in the top side. The Brothers War in lore, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not exactly sure how a Ram and a Bear end up as brothers, but that's not questions for me. Those are questions for the lore junkies of League of Legends. There's much to enjoy about this game, as Evi's enjoying his time in the top side. About a 10 CS lead for him there. The longer there's no jungle intervention, the better, he says. But it looks like the map may come to him, as Herald is going to be having a couple members rotated over. Both supports have roamed, and this is sort of what I was talking about earlier, where Grendel is happy to rotate here, but Gengo definitely needs his time to just farm out, especially with both bot laners not having backed yet. Udapon will be first to back, though, so if a fight does break out, it looks like he has opportunity to head over there, but Grendel's going to be the one who gets found out with a stun. Not going to have time to get anything off to find a stun to get the aftershock. A flash forward from Steel is going to get a chomp down onto him, and that's going to be Grendel roaming around there, and ultimately in a position that, like we mentioned, CGA just did not need to be in. You could have easily just had Grendel on the bottom side with his AD helping shove in the lane, and unfortunately they paid the price for it. And Steel's going to be able to get that one up. The nice thing is that it's not a laner, or it's not a solo laner that died, so you don't have to worry about this Rift Herald immediately getting cashed in on. While Grendel will return to the bot lane here to grab up that wave. Or at least grab up the experience and hopefully hit up to that level 6 mark. Grendel thinking about going for a little bit of an engage here, and Unica's roaming around to possibly look to make just that happen. He did get spotted by the wave on his way in, so don't think they know that, or at least they do know that he's coming in, and I don't think CGA were aware of the same, so gonna deter any aggression on that side of things. And that was actually a beautiful little bit of damage that Seros got right there from Wing the wave. As the way that Heimerdinger's W works is that if one rocket hits, it does about 55% damage of the overall spell. So you don't need all the rockets to hit to get a good chunk of the damage through. So he deletes the backline wave and gets one rocket to land to get a cheeky bit of damage there, but CGA looking for opportunity. DFM are coming from all fronts here. If Evi goes for a dive here, CGA are in a position to respond. Evi's caught on the wrong side of this one, but the aggression's going to be onto Seros for now. That's going to be him blown up by the Moonlight Vigil. Arya picking up that kill. And that's going to deter the play for now, as Steel can't, or excuse me, not Steel. Evi cannot be running around the backside here. Sure, he could go for the turret neutralization. Good flash from Gego to get out of the way of that Tempered Fate. Unica's Arya's going to use a wall just for defensive measure there. A couple false starts on all fronts there, but an ultimate from both mid and support on both ends of the map is going to net nothing other than a burned flash from Aphelios. But we'll watch this one more time, as even though Evi is coming down, this was just CGA being one step ahead of the game, and Seros is here. They're looking for a dive opportunity, but once they make the call to go all in onto Seros, and you have no other carries that can really make this fight happen, Evi smartly makes the call to back away. If you're under turret, and then you're just staring down the barrel of an Azir and Azir and Gango, and a Unica that is going to be happy to just lock you up until the turret comes back online, not the best position to be in, but DFM will find themselves in a decent enough position, as they're going to grab up this Mountain Drake, putting themselves up for the first 2 Drakes of the game, and this will be a point of pressure or a point of relief for CGA of what soul is going to be on the menu here. We'll see what's coming up. It is going to be a Cloud Soul, as CGA will be able to breathe a bit of a sigh of relief that it's not an Infernal Soul, as that means that if it does come down to it and you have to pass over the next two Drakes, that isn't going to be a bad option. But it looks like the repeat dive is going to come out onto Arya. That's going to be stealing gang going in here first. Beautiful dash from Arya to get away from that one, and ultimately will deter the play for now. Nap teleporting in as well. Takes a bit of damage for it, but with the Rift Herald being spawned up immediately right there, I don't think they'll be able to deny the charge necessarily. The gold will go over to Seros and Steel, but not suffering a death is honestly the best you can really ask for. Nap having to burn his teleport is a small price to pay. I think the next point that will really kind of be of interest for CGA is this Rift Herald, and I'm really hoping that they don't make any decisions too hasty on that side of things, as you already dropped your only kill so far of Grendel roaming up when you were in no position to fight. And as of right now, Gango still does not have an item completed, but Arya is going to be the one who wants to start things off with a fight. Unica's going to Hex Flash in, but Arya's going very low in the meantime. That's going to be just Seros' empowered turret damage, getting a lot of value out there. Nap's going to throw out the ultimate. Seros is going to go very low. Moonlight Vigil should give him enough autos to finish. Grendel's going to flash forward and throw down the Ignite to just make that kill happen. A 1-for-1 overall. And well, we'll see what this play has still in store for us, as Steel, Evi, and Gaten going to try to hold down this turret here. Yudabon enjoying just some time to free farm in the bot lane, but it looks like we'll return back to neutral for now. And CGA kind of doing it exactly as I called it, where they're not exactly in a position to fight. Sure, Arya can go for that shuffle, and you might be able to knock him down. The unfortunate part is really just that you don't quite have enough damage to burst him all the way through, and the whole time you're sitting there, he just ate so much damage from the Heimerdinger turret. Seros throws that one down. Unica comes in, and then Arya just eats so much damage from that turret. And this is honestly a great re-engage from CGA. I love the Call of the Forge God here. Gives you a good target to go on. No flash on Seros, but none needed, as Grendel's going to be happy to pick up that kill for him. And in the end of that all, returning back to neutral, but with a Rift Herald now on the menu, and it looks like CGA are going to opt into it. If you're willing to take a fight like that in the mid lane, you're willing to fight over this Rift Herald, so we'll see how things go. Seros is in the bot lane, which is a little bit of a harrowing position, as you need time to set up those turrets, so even if he teleports in, might not be the best position, but also has possibility to trade over for first turret if he has enough time alone down there. But CGA gonna grab up that Rift Herald, and it looks like resets for now, as Grendel's going to be trying to see if he can help out things on the top side. Throws out the E. Will be in turret range, so needs to be a little bit careful here. Gonna take one more. He will go down. No, it's going to go golden for now, as Steel's going to get found out on the other end of things. Genko should be able to knock him down. Unica's going to be the one picking up that kill, and Grendel did live out on that on the other side, so spawn up the Rift Herald as you wish. DFM did get first turret, but CGA will be able to trade one right back over, and Steel gonna be picking up that turret there as the Tempered Fate flies in to deny the charge from Shelly. We'll delay that turret and stall out CGA on the top side of things for a little while longer. Little bit of a cheeky play, but not one you're too worried about. And ultimately, in terms of gold value, it will, I believe, overall benefit DFM, as they were able to also knock down the mid lane turret, as Arya wasn't quite able to hold out against all of the members of DFM pushing in. So good position for DFM. You're finding yourself at about a nearly 3k, just shy of 3k gold advantage. If you are CGA, though, that does help build a little bit of confidence that you are knocking down Steel, and given that DFM have sort of decaying front line between Evi and Steel, as they are not going to be tanky forever, so setting them behind early is not a bad look for for what CGA got out of that overall trade. But with Cloud Drake on the menu, CGA are going to have inside track to that one.
ボットレーンサイドにナップが控えています。
I'm curious to see if CGA will even commit for this one, as they aren't really in a position that they can afford to tank the Drake and the members of DFM at the same time.
ただしユニカがリフト
But it really is just a game of trying to find a fight in or around DFM starting up that Drake. And for now, you're just going to use the Volibear E's and all of the Udapon spells to try and zone away, but
フォーカスミは3つ目。そしてナップが狙って
it's sort of hard for CGA to even find a fight around this, as you can feel the damage coming out from that Saros W. It is very difficult to walk in, and that's going to be a Tempered Fate flying in. Call of the Forge God should be able to break up the crew a bit, so they're not able to capitalize off of that, but Azir's going to go down at the start of this fight. Gango's nowhere near this one, as DFM are just going to lose two.
ラインが届いていません。
That's going to be a flash away from Nap and a flash in from Unica. He's looking to try and get something started up, but Gango's going to have to go all in on this one. He has a bear running at him on the other end of things.
トゥルーソフトバラージと合わ
A little bit wild from the side of CGA to try and find a fight in the wake of that.
せ厳選手運命の調律
What could have just been a fight loss and you just kind of cut your losses in that regard. CGA try to make something turned of it.
良かったんですが、やはりキャリーライン捕まってしまうと CGA としてはかなり苦しいですね。届きません。
And we'll watch this one more time, as I'm even going to have to scratch my head a little bit about this one, as Saros just finds so much damage. That W is just starting to hurt with all the extra gold he was able to get on that bot side with his free farming. Tempered Fate comes in, and I like the ultimate from Nap, but Gango's just nowhere near this. He's not even conjoined with his team, so the first couple, maybe like 30 seconds of this fight, Gango's just walking around trying to find a position. And then Unica's just committing his flash, Gango's committing his flash. It was a little bit interesting that CGA thought they could clean up that fight, but this is not a late game Aphelios. This is a one item Infinity Edge Aphelios.
ダメージを出してくるチームでもあるので、なかなか油断できないですよね、このチーム相手に。
We'll see if DFM are able to keep that kind of ball rolling.
クリティカルダメージ上げる。
And one thing I will say is that Saros has done a great job of posturing the Heimerdinger as a poke champion. It offers a zone of control, which makes it a little bit difficult for CGA to find and engage.
珍しい。
But then it also just throwing out so many W's is really netting him value, as Arya's going to get
おーっと、ありがとう
his flash forced out there by the Tempered Fate. And right now, DFM are just looking to run down any member of CGA they find out.
かなり。
CGA really need to be playing a bit more careful than they are right now, as Unica's gonna be the one to fall for that if he is not careful. That's gonna be a bouncing grenade that's gonna find his way there. Grendel's gonna be able to escape this one on a low HP, but
セロスのダメージに耐えられませんでした。
living out in the end means DFM have an opportunity at Baron. They'd have to give up this mid lane turret, and it doesn't look like they want to just yet. Steel gonna throw down the pillar to hopefully try to find an opportunity. Nap's gonna headbutt that one to try and get rid of it.
アリアが懸命
And you can just see here, CGA do not have the damage items to start shredding through DFM. They are still at a point that they are strong. CGA really need to be waiting out the clock, but
ジャングルのプレイヤーも落ちている
right now, almost cresting into a 6k cold deficit.
堅実
Now more than ever, they need to be biding their time, as Saros is going to pick up another turret up in the top side. Already has Rabadons completed, so those W pokes are only going to start hurting more and more, as
パワースパイクが来ましたね
Udapon is also going for Trinity Force, so he is going for the more damage-oriented build. And right now, I have to look immediately at that top lane. A wave going to waste while CGA are just trying to set up vision. Does not feel worth it when you're this far behind.
ダメージ耐えるのは苦しい状況。
Speaking of behind, Evi's looking to set Arya a bit more behind. He's just going to go all in, jumps over the wall, and well, that's going to be a dead Arya, as he's found out just a bit too far from home.
ルートを考えても、この時間でもまだまだダメージが出るエビ選手、装備状況になっているので、これ集団戦でもアリア選手、ガンゴ選手は苦労しそうですね。
And I don't want to call it too early, as Caster's Curse would be the worst thing for DFM right now, but
ステージに向かいます。
as it stands, DFM looking a bit to form and looking like they're returning just in time for playoffs.
そう、デトネーションフォーカスミン。
We'll have to see how things go, but CGA are going to look to grab up this Baron. They're looking to just try and burn this one down as soon as possible. Arya's going to teleport in, but DFM are here. The only one not is Evi, but he has teleport, so if anything goes haywire, they're here for it. All the while, they're just losing all of these minions on the bot side, but CGA are just going to commit to the Baron. This feels a little bit like a bad situation for CGA to be in, but they'll throw the Call of the Forge God out to try and find a fight. That's just going to get flashed away from and sidestep there. Nap's going to be too low HP to try and be the tank that he wants to be. And now CGA are routed. That's going to be the Tempered Fate. They have to leave Unica behind here as a... That's going to be a huge ultimate that's going to not knock anyone down, but with Arya having to go in for the shuffle, that's going to be CGA getting just blown apart here. I don't even know if Evi needed to teleport for that one. As Detonation focused me, just what was ultimately CGA just kind of throwing around this objective. Do DFM have enough time to just end the game? They're going to throw down the double own record to keep these minions alive as long as possible. This might just be game. CGA step out of line, and there's no miracle opportunity here. This is just going to be DFM with a clinical win over CGA. I'm actually a little bit lost, as it just felt like CGA were overstepping their limits. They wanted to fight too early. They wanted to contest too much. And DFM with what felt like ultimately a 1-2-3 combo. It was find a couple kills, find turret advantage, you won one fight, you win the next one, and this is a fight that CGA is opting into, so I'm a little bit lost, as CGA are usually much more reserved than this. But in the wake of that, DFM are just happy to capitalize. And this fight gets just ultimately mopped up from the side of DFM. And that's going to be Detonation Focus Me finding themselves 2-0 in the week. And that will put them above Burning Core in the standings. So this is as good as you can ask for if you are Detonation Focus Me to try and get the highest seed possible. They're going to find themselves 7-7, finishing out the regular split. So good stuff to them, as CGA will have a chance to redeem themselves coming up against Sengoku Gaming. Don't go anywhere if you're looking forward to tuning into that. I'll be back to commentate that one. I am Dr. No. I do all of the English commentary for the LJL. If you guys are interested in more English LJL action, I will be doing playoffs and the rest of this week coming up here, so be sure to drop a follow if you guys are interested in tuning into any of that. All of that being said, though, I do appreciate you guys tuning in. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back for CGA versus Sengoku, which is going to be another great match to look forward to. One that I'm also personally looking forward to. But we'll hold off on all of that for now. I'm going to be taking a quick break. I'm going to be refilling on water and the like. Stay hydrated, everyone, and hopefully we'll be seeing you again soon.